Okay, so back in time. We've got our various old timers waving at each other. We should have had special days. All right, so we divided into two to present. I don't know if you guys are tag teaming. So Clancy and Gail have graciously agreed to be here. I too also provided this swag. So your lanyards, I can tell you the humorous story of Gail stealing lanyards and Jim Stewart stealing lanyards. And anyways, your lanyards, and that's mostly because I'm always irritated to buy really cheap name tags that have those goofy little strings on them and they drive me crazy. So for this particular meeting, so hold on to your lanyard and use it for the rest of your life.
So you will no longer be providing lanyards.
I'm not buying the goofy string back. I'm not giving those goofy strings. You can give them back. Yeah. This is one of the things that for women, I don't know if it bothers other women, that name tags are really designed for men. That you've got jewelry and stuff that's always around. We never have lapels with pin things too. So, anyways. And actually, there was discussions about. I think I gave lapel pins for the anniversary, and I said, well, those really don't work that well for women. Yeah, don't have lapels. So, anyways, Swag even has male female thing. So, welcome to I2. They also provided us mugs. They nicely shipped those down. So, thanks for the support. And I think most of you are I2 participants at some level. So, Gail, it's all yours.
All right, and yeah, so I actually brought my prop for swag because. As Marla said, I was very excited to help you guys put your swag. I love swag. I come back from Educause and my husband's like, how many thousand Post-it notes did you get this time? So, but anyways, we wanted to do this because it's our 20-year anniversary, which is really exciting, but also as a thank you because whether or not you're members, you're all part of the community that makes Internet 2 possible. So when you drink out of this mug, think about that. We're all really excited for that. And thank you guys for inviting me to this meeting. I feel really welcome. I love to listen and hear the topics that are going on your campus. And when I can, we were just talking about this, when I can, I bring it back to Internet 2 and help provide the feedback. So I'm Gail Krovitz. I'm on the community engagement team. I'm not a technical person, so if you want to dig into some nitty gritty, I'm probably the wrong person to talk with, and I'll get you in touch with somebody. So my job at Internet 2 is to be a resource mostly for our existing members, but also for other members in the community who find their way to me and want information about what Internet 2 has going on. So, I lost the slides. Okay, so what I was hoping to do today is actually, okay, now the clicker's not working. You gotta love technology. Oh. It was, of course, it was just working like a minute ago. There. Now we turn myself off.
Let me stop it and restart it.
Okay. Anyways, what I was hoping to do today, I'm going on the assumption that most of you know a little bit about Internet 2. So I'm not going to do like a basic what is Internet 2 presentation, but there we go. I want to talk more about some of the strategic priorities and discussions we've been having because obviously it's our 20-year anniversary. We have a lot of big new initiatives going on and there have been a lot of really interesting conversations. So I want to tell you just a little bit at a high level about what's going on, and I'll be here the rest of the meeting. So you can find me for questions later if you want more information, or we can do some kind of follow-up if you'd like. So some of the main directions that Internet 2 has been focusing on, and this isn't rocket science, these aren't new things, but we've had a lot of discussion kind of fundamentally re-articulating our core purposes. And obviously, the primary core purpose of Internet 2 is our network. That is the heart of what a lot of Internet 2 does. But also, and Ken's going to talk about this a little more, we've really articulated the fundamental importance of trust and identity services that we provide, or that we kind of spearhead for the higher education community. So these have been focus areas where we've kind of re-articulated delivering on our critical commitments to the community. And then we're also working on what they're calling optimizing programs to better meet member needs. And these are some of the things we'll talk about. We're revising the higher education membership model, which has been since I started Internet 2 just about 2 years ago, and we've been talking about this since then, so it's been a very interesting process. The Net Plus program, which I know we talked about a little bit yesterday, it continues to evolve, and there's some new stuff to discuss. And then also, just to put out there, even though we can't really talk about it much today, the Internet 2 is still trying to figure out how we strengthen our programs around researcher engagement, because we recognize with our members that's researcher support and use of the network is obviously one of the primary reasons people come to us.
So you realize we've been struggling with that since 1996.
Which the researcher
The
support?
researcher engagement.
Yeah, exactly. And Internet 2, you think we'd have an easy answer for that, but I can tell you as part of my job, I go to campuses and I meet primarily with CIOs and talk about how are things going, and I hear this all the time.
So when I say we, I don't mean Internet 2, I mean we.
Yeah.
We too, yes.
Yeah, and that's where, we don't exist other than for you and, trying to spearhead and help you guys. So where I want to go today, and we'll see if I get through all this because I like to talk a lot, but we're going to talk about the new membership model and some Net Plus updates, a little bit about the network. Again, that's not my strength of the area I come from, so if you have a lot of questions there, we'll figure out how to get them answered. And then I'm going to hand off to Ken to talk about our new work in trust and identity, which is really getting exciting. So to start with the new membership model. So just as a reminder, first of all, I have to put this picture up because it's our new member map that we just did for our Global Summit meeting in May. So this is, and it's based on the GPS coordinates of where our members are, which I think is pretty cool. And of course, it's already out of date, because we get new members and there's other things happening. But just to remind you, this is a map of our higher education members, which are the core of Internet 2. And we do have other membership types. I kind of think of them as like little moons orbiting around the higher education sphere, which is our main focus. So we do have affiliate members, which are usually research labs or other agencies that work with and support higher ed. We have some industry members. Obviously, our research and education network partners are critically important for us to be working together with. And then we have a US UCAN program that allows other what we call community anchor institutions, primarily libraries and museums and hospitals and various other things to connect into the network without necessarily becoming Internet 2 members. So with the membership model that changes, right now they only affect higher education members. There may be a time in the future where other membership categories change, but right now there hasn't been discussion about that. So what we're talking about really is higher education members, and it changes what we're calling the sustaining contributions. We are a membership-based organization. We only exist because we have members, and these, what we're calling the membership dues and network participation fees, are fees you pay to Internet 2 just because you're a member. Like that's what keeps us alive. It supports our core operating needs. And then you may pay additional fees, like if you use Net Plus or if you have additional networking services or other things. But members pay the dues and the network participation fees to support us as an organization and the different things that we do. So when we're talking about changing the model, this, it's these membership fees and network participation, well, kind of the bundle of those. For those of you who might not be familiar, our current membership model uses Carnegie classification. And this is the current levels. We go from level 1 to level 4 based on your Carnegie classification. And we've been asked for the past couple of years by the community, different community, we have program advisory groups, and also our board has been advising us, you have to get away from Carnegie classification because it just doesn't mean that much anymore. For example, if we look at our level 1 members, you're not all a cookie cutter. You're not a category where everybody in there is the same. And if we looked at, as part of this exercise, they looked at the research and the research money that comes in, and there's 175-fold difference just within level 1 in the amount of research money that comes in. And obviously that impacts their usage of Internet 2 and what they want to do with it. So we've really been trying to move away from that. And so we're moving from a Carnegie-based to some sort of, or at the time we didn't know what it was, a scale-based model. Now, after tons and tons of number crunching and modeling, we have decided on a model that is a horribly complicated model we're not going to go into today, but it involves total annual expenditures as reported to iPads and your total annual R&D expenditures through that we get that information through NSF. We like having these measures. For example, the iPads are data your school provides. It's not something I have to think about when when a member or school contacts me about memberships. I should also say, obviously, we've had a lot of conversations with the board about this, our program advisory groups, and we also did a membership task force. And I'm looking, Mike Erickson, who I thought was going to be here, but because I don't see him, he was on the membership task force, so he would be another person to talk to if you guys, want kind of the insider scoop on that. As part of the process, they did decide to weight the R&D expenditures much more heavily than overall expenditures, because again, that's what drives a lot of the programs from Internet 2 and the network usage and those kinds of things. The new model is going to have a minimum amount and a maximum amount, just like today. And what is interesting is we're looking at this now as a combined number that's going to have dues and network participation in it, which is, in the past couple of years, we've gotten away from having every member contribute towards the network. So we do have some members that pay membership dues and are not paying network participation fees. So in the new model, a portion of whatever the number is going to be allocated towards membership and towards network participation. So every member of Internet 2 is going to be supporting the network. And let's see, there we go. And there's also a multi-year transition. The next year in 2017, we're kind of moving halfway there, and we are hoping and expecting that by 2018, we'll have the full model implemented. There's a lot of moving parts of this, like you might imagine, combining dues and network participation fee. Right now we have 2 bills. So for someone like Pat, for example, you get 2 bills from Internet 2.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No, but we'd love to change that because frankly, it's kind of annoying. And trying to explain to people, well, that bill was for this and this bill. So we're really hoping that there's room for that. So we're hoping that, by 2018, we'll have more of those ducks in a row and those little wrinkles will be figured out. And just to show you guys this, because I think it's interesting, this x-axis is just a member number. So you might imagine, schools 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, 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 blah. And then, so look first at the green line. The green is our current membership model, how much schools are paying. And you'll see that it's stair-stepped, or excuse me, I got that wrong, red. Look at red first. You'll see the stair-step of level 1, and then chunk level 2, and then the different kinds of level 3 members, and then down here is level 4. The green is the new model. So you'll see for some members, particularly a lot of level 1, they're right up at that 95,000 cap. So we don't see what we see in level 2. I think this is more realistic. We see a range of schools. Not all schools are the same. You are doing different things. You have different budgets, different expenditures, and so on. So some members, like you'll see, there's a big change for these ones. These, unfortunately, are going up. A lot of members in the new model are going to go down. A lot of members are staying virtually the same. So, and anyways, I can't get into it too much more, but are there questions about this before I move on?
You said it was sold to NSF fees. Are you getting the numbers only from NSF? How about people with NIH and other types of R&D?
And I think that's a great question. My understanding was that it's a number of all your external funding, not just NSF grants. I can check that to be sure because I'm not as familiar with that source, but
I think it's all federal funding. What it doesn't count is some of our industry funding and stuff like that, but it is all funded.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I think those are the cases. There's a lot of little things we're catching. Like I report to a man named Dave Gift, who used to be the CIO up in Michigan and Michigan State, I think, and he's got a whole list of you know, all these little niggly things like, oh yeah, we gotta talk about that. Oh yeah, we gotta think about that. So there's lots of ways that this impacts throughout Internet 2 and other things. So there's a lot we're still working on. And Marla, did you have a question too?
Well, I was just gonna add, yeah, I think that a number of you were invited to a webinar where this was gone over in some detail as well, and I think somewhere along the way I linked that from probably the FRGC agenda or something. So that's certainly available if anybody wants to go back and watch that. As I remember, the equation was quite amazing to see the calculation. So you'd have to run that. And I think you had offered to run numbers for any university.
Yeah.
I do think that obviously for budgeting, you should start looking at this number. And Gail, I think, can't remember where, so UCAR is a member, but we're not a university member, we're an affiliate member. And I don't think you guys have decided what you're doing.
Yeah, the affiliate, or you may be an R&E, I'm not sure. UCAR is, but like FRGP might be an R&E. I don't know, but yeah,
UCAR is also.
But yeah, this is only for higher education members, like schools right now. You know, there may be changes, you know, or fee increases or something with the other membership levels, but I haven't seen any discussion on that yet. And I made a note, I can send, we did webinars, and I know members on my team, for example, like the schools in Colorado that are my members, I've emailed all the CIOs at the schools, you know, that said, look, your numbers in the new model, because if you try to look at that formula, I've had people write back and they go, I'm good at math and I still don't know what you're talking about. So it's unfortunately complex.
We talked on the
Yes.
phone, but oftentimes my CIO has no clue what's
Yes.
going on with this, and I'm the one budgeting and forecasting and paying the bill.
Yeah.
So please do try to include some people below the CIO in your communications.
Yeah, I think that's a good, and the hard part is sometimes at the school, we don't necessarily know that.
Yes.
You know, we kind of assume our point of contact is the CIO, and then they're gonna, you know, trickle it down and eventually gets to you. But I know, actually, I was gonna follow up with you to make sure you have what you need. So let's talk for a few minutes about Net Plus. I know there was some discussion about that yesterday. For those of you who don't know, Internet 2 has kind of marshaled the community to try to help out in this cloud space. Can we help with getting some kind of terms and conditions, higher education focused terms and conditions and standard contracting? And obviously it's not really perfect, but this I just wanted to put up here. This is a list of some of the services in Net Plus that are in what we call general availability or early adopter, meaning they're available now, and that we're seeing a lot of interest and activity in these services. And I put this in based on our conversation yesterday, and I can't remember who brought it up, but what's really interesting for me is that Net Plus is changing the landscape of cloud services for everybody in higher education. And this top one actually is not quite that, but I thought I'd put that in there. If any of you are member schools that are using Splunk, they have something called Splunk Certified Power Users, and there's different courses. Those courses are being made free to all Internet 2 member faculty, students, and staff. So you can follow up with me if you want more information on that. But we are having a market influence. So both AWS and Azure have changed their different data policies, data egress or whatever, now in place throughout higher education, not just for people who are not even using Net Plus contracts. They said, oh, this makes sense. It's now there for everybody. So the Internet 2 members that put their sweat equity in making those contracts happen have now benefited the entire higher education community, which I think is pretty cool. And also we're impacting the way these providers interact with each other. There are now integrations between Box, Lab Archives, Canvas, and BlueJeans that exist within those programs or those tools. So that's interesting regardless, you don't even have to be on a Net Plus if you're using Canvas and BlueJeans to have that interaction. So that's pretty cool. Some of the updates I wanted to touch on, Net Plus is now 3 years old, and they did a 3-year community review last year, or I guess last fall, where they did a lot of interviews with different groups and within the community. And there, the implications of that and the changes are still rolling out. It's not, a magic wand where things change overnight. But one of the main goals is quality over quantity. If you look at the website, the internet, the Net Plus website, there's a million things listed, and you don't know where they are in the process, and are they ever going to make it? And there's 3 of these and 2 of those, and so we've been asked, can we be more strategic, doing, more differentiated services instead of 3 of the same thing. So we'll see how that plays out. The unfortunate repercussion is that might mean for things that are in general availability but don't have a lot of subscriptions, they may get sunset. What that means, I don't know. I mean, what happens, I don't know. But that's some of the stuff that we may see happen as this evolves. Another thing that came out of that review is this idea we want to have an online registry that makes it easier for providers to register their services. We get emails all the time that say, hi, I sell this widget or this kind of thing. I want to be a Net Plus. What do I do? And that's Internet 2's time to work through that process. And when I say Internet 2 time, that's actually members' time, and their money and their resources supporting us to make this happen. So the more we can streamline this process, that's great. This doesn't exist yet, but hopefully we'll get there, because it sounds like a great idea. Another thing I wanted to be sure to bring up, and I know Marla, you mentioned this. This is a new program that, again, is very new. I don't know a lot about it, but it's starting to roll out for all of the US UCAN states and schools that are affiliated, which I believe almost all of you are. They are working on a way to get Net Plus out to any qualified, I think it's, not-for-profit higher education institution. And so that's really exciting. Does it solve some of the problems we talked about yesterday? I don't know. Like one of the things, again, I hear on a lot of campuses is trouble with procurement. Some schools can adopt Net Plus. I met with the CIO, he said, I love these contracts. I take them to my person. They know that they've been looked at by a huge number of schools in the community, and they don't have to spend their time and cycles going through it. And then I also hear from schools that have been banging their head against the procurement people who say it's not competitively bid or whatever it is. So does this fix it? I don't have any idea. It's still new, but I just wanted to let you know it's a really great opportunity that I'm hoping will help a wider variety of institutions participate in Net Plus.
And yeah, I'll just add that I have on record, the problem for Colorado is that doesn't really help a whole lot of schools, because most schools are the direct participants of Internet 2. I'd like to see it reach down to the K-12, and it still doesn't serve all US UCAN.
Yeah, well, that's
it's
true.
only higher ed.
Yeah.
So it's a very, in our world, it's pretty small.
A narrow sliver.
And
Yeah.
Wyoming, it's not really small. Most of theirs are K-12 with US UCAN. So, hopefully it will get even broader.
Yeah, I think that's, I would assume that's the hope. We'll see how it evolves. And just so you know, I'm going to fly through these. These are all in the slides that Marla will post. For those of you who are interested, Q3, which, July, in theory, you can start signing up for this. And we don't need to read through all of this. There is a link to a box folder here that has a presentation on this that goes into more detail and a list of application steps and those kinds of things. There's also the Net Plus email. So if you're interested, it doesn't hurt to start putting out feelers and figuring out what it would take to find out how this works for you. The network slides, I just want to put these up here for you. Again, I'm not a network guru, so if you have questions, I'll make sure you get to the right person. This is our current network footprint. And it's very important to us that we work with the state and regional networks, whatever happens to be in your area, because that's how you guys connect to us. And then we also connect to, I think the latest is 71 international NRENs that serve over 100 nations around the world. So it's great, you know, you guys connect up to us and all of us connect around the world, which is important.
So what's the current focus for networking? Do you know, is it like stabilizing what exists and increasing the capacity, using it better? And do you already have a roadmap for the next network on?
I paid Pat to say that because, no, just kidding. But this, I think those are, this is, when I put up those bullets earlier that kind of said Internet 2 strategic focus, like our core focus on the network, this was the whole thing. And I normally don't like to put up so much wordiness, but you know, this is what Internet 2 is committing to. And I'm going to fly through these because you'll have them. These are some of the more specific bullets. There is a network upgrade that they're working on, and there are different groups. So Pat, do you want me to find out? Like, what I don't know is how we can get people on, like if those are committees, if they're interest groups, if they're email groups, like I'm not sure. Is that something you guys would like me to find out? And
maybe we should get a briefing for the next Chico meeting anyway, at, you know, the Colorado Higher Education.
So Pat, there is a significant network upgrade that's going to be done, and the calendar has been briefings of it. Rob, get you the detailed briefing.
Okay, so we understand the technology that's going to be coming in?
There actually is a major technology change. They're going to pull out.
Okay. So what did Marlon tell us, right?
I have a PowerPoint from March, I'll send it.
Okay, good, thanks.
which meeting was that, Chad, in March?
It was titled Internet 2 Regional Plans, Regional Update, March 16th. It was sent out by Marla.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you maybe distribute that.
They're basically going to pull, they're pulling brocade infrastructure out. A lot of the SVM that's been being run on that, and they're going to go to SDLS using Juniper, I believe.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big hardware refresh, and they're working on the schedule, and they'll be working through. You'll see presumably some outages as we pull gear out of Denver, put the gear in.
Yeah, so that's in place. You know, they're doing other, you know, lots of other planning, and I'll just put these up. Security is a big focus on the network, that they're trying to figure out how do we, you know, get security in place and make sure that we have ongoing security assessments. And then, you know, what are the network services on top of that? So we can definitely talk. I think if you distribute the slideshow, Rob is obviously the person running that show, so whatever he's presented on is the state of the information that we have right now. And if we want to find a time for a future, you know, update or something like that, we can totally do that. So I think those are all the slides I have. Before I hand over to Ken, do you guys have other questions for me?
Well, I guess I'll just add that Gail is local, and Anna is also local, and I think they're always happy to present at either FRGP or Chico, and they're down offices.
You're still alive.
We can go visit. If you're ever interested, let me know.
Yeah, yep, that's true. So we're in the downtown Denver area, and Anna Hunsinger, who's the VP of Community Engagement, she was hoping to be here and then had a schedule conflict, so she couldn't make it. But we're always happy, and again, thank you for including me. I love to just hear the conversations. They're very interesting, and if you have other questions, specific things about your school or just in general, find me at one of the breaks or email me, and we'll go from there.
One other one. Yeah, can you open, there's one other file I want to open up. Reach your question. And I'll start out. Okay. I'll start on other stuff. Yeah, no, I saw this one. Okay, good. That's it. Okay. Okay, we on? Clicker. Okay. Good to see you folks. Let me just take this in for a second. Yeah, God, memories. In fact, given the schmaltzy theme here, I'm actually wearing a sun shirt from if anybody, yeah, actually, I was talking to somebody who was just taking down their sun servers. So, good God. Okay, so I'm Ken Klingenstein. I'm one of the original co-conspirators, along with Julian and Pat and a few others and Mike on this stuff, and it's really fine to be here. I'm going to start by I'm going to start talking a little bit about trust and identity, who and what's running this activity. I'm going to switch decks for a second to go into a tier briefing, which is the software being created or polished by Internet 2, and then I'm going to come back and talk about In Common a little bit. And by the way, when Gail was describing the fees, I think the In Common fee is going to remain distinct from the rest of the fee structure, because there's a large number of organizations in Common who have no other touch point with Internet 2. And that's a goodness in terms of In Common, because it really has gotten to be that kind of universal infrastructure. So I'll talk about In Common, and then I'm going to come back and talk about the hopeless activity that I'm currently engaged in. I've been the patron saint of hopeless causes ever since we started Westnet, I believe, or even before that. Yeah, SuperNet, yeah, all kinds of other things. So I'm still a fool. Okay, so just to give you a sense of the folks that are engaged in this. Kevin Maroney, who, if you don't know him, he's just a fine person. He's still a fine person, having been the CIO at Penn State for the last 10 years and dealing with all of the thrills that Penn State has given from the whole Paterno stuff. So when Kevin rolled in, Kevin had his eyes squarely on research computing and connecting with researchers, and then spent the next 6 years doing discovery of email relative to the Paterno incident, and nothing else but that. And there was also the thrill of the engineering college having been hacked and massively, and them going, so? And the president of the university really did want to get that hack out of the engineering network. So Kevin has moved over, and I feel really positive about Kevin's leadership and all of this stuff. He comes from this fabric deeply and is passionate about it. He has two folks working with him, Ann West, who many of you may know through her extensive outreach activities over many years, and Steve Zoppi, who's been running the tier software suite. We have working groups galore, so if you want to get engaged in any of this stuff, we can give you endless phone calls to be a part of. We're working heavily now on APIs, because the sense is that all the software we're producing is going to be embedded in some kind of environment on your campus, and you want to know how to get to it and how to get out of it. So we've been doing a lot of that stuff. We're now working on registries and what we're calling lizard brain messaging. We need something very basic to communicate among the various components in this software suite, expecting that people will do something more sophisticated. But just in case you're not inclined for that, we'll give some very basic lizard.
Use reflexive instead of cognitive?
Yes, surely. A trigger happens here, and you're provisioned in that system. So think provisioning, think lizard. We have Maze-Steer, which has gone on since 2000, I believe, and then in the In Common space, we have In Common TAC and In Common Steering. We're trying to fuse all this stuff. It has been historically that trust and the software that did trust were kind of separate components. And so we had a group of CIOs running In Common, and then we had a group of folks developing the software. We're trying to unify them. There's operations, and as I just indicated, we're trying to get governance uniform in this space. So I'm going to hop to the presentation by Zoppi and Wes, and then I want to come back and talk about what it means for you. because you're somewhere on a spectrum of needing identity management or having identity management, and you may be under the heavy footprint of Oracle, or under the it's not so heavy footprint of Banner or some other places. What does it mean to you in this space? So let me escape if I can. Switch to this. Can I do a slideshow with PDF? No. That's Gail's.
There's two of them.
There was two there. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. Let me see if I can make this full screen. Nothing else. You want to do that?
Yes, I can do it here.
And then, okay, I may have to use the slider bar. Okay. Oh, that'd be great. Okay. So this was again out of the. What did you click to?
Roll the button.
The roll button. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So, in some sense, here could be labeled sweeping up after the mess I've made over 15 years. And it was a mess. Well, some of you, I think the software was a mess. Certainly, the funding base was almost all $1 and menace. And bless their heart for betting on this sucker. It took a little bit longer to arrive there in terms of that researcher support. It's still not quite there, and I'll talk about it. But all of this was funded on speculative. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All of this was based upon ad hoc funding, and we're trying to move into something more sustainable. Because if you're playing the federated game, you're using some variant of SHIB probably, or simple sound HP and something like that. And we want that software to be there because federation became important, and it's becoming even more important. So there's an integration, there's an enhance and an extend function, and we're trying to do all of those. Release 1 here happened sometime in April, and it's the only real release we're going to do because it was the level set. It was make all these strange things that have happened over the year work with each other, make all of them be easier to install. If you do games like Docker or VM, we want to make sure all of that stuff works well. We want to make sure that the library is being used by Share, that the library is being used by Google, are the same libraries, just in case. All that stuff. So that was the one seismic release that we're going to do. Everything since that is going to be incremental, but this was seismic. So we wanted to leverage existing work, narrow the tool sets, utilize VMs, and fortify the federation operations. So again, this was based around the idea that we want to provide places, campuses to build off of, and hopefully work on the practices and provide some foundation. And so Steve did all this work about building the infrastructure necessary for this. I won't go into all of that. We had to get deep into Docker and pieces. But here's what came out in April. SHIB. How many people here run SHIB? How many people here run a version of SHIB 2.5 or earlier? How many are on 3.0? Put it that way. If you're not on 3.0, you need to be. I'll come back to that. But end of life for SHIB 2.5 is next month. That means no security patches. And it's not that SHIB is bad, but SHIB depends on lots of open source libraries that may not be sustained well. And so if one of those libraries, breaks, then how will SHIB deal with it? Well, after the end of July, it won't. So and this will be the only this stair-step upgrade in the shibboleth landscape. You will never see SHIB 4.0. I mean, we've done most of the things we need to do in this space, but I'll come back and touch on that. Enterprise access via Grouper, and in fact, Grouper, because we didn't have an answer to provisioning, is the way that there are connectors inside Grouper that do provisioning. Grouper's taken off. Grouper really has become almost as ubiquitous as SHIB. That creates problems down the road, but I'll just give you an example of the importance of Grouper. If you look at the Brown University directory, there are 15,000 identities in there. There are 110,000 groups. Why? Well, they opened up groups to users, and users can create groups. And so I have groups of the people in my class, groups in my chess club, groups everywhere. And users love that sucker once they get past some naming conventions, etc. So group is really important. And then there's the entity registries.
So Ken, is that something we all should do, do you think?
Oh, yeah. Open up group membership.
Yeah, to everybody.
Oh, yeah. It's a thrill. I mean, people love it. I mean, it is identity management. It's your contact. It's all the things you want to do.
Yeah.
You log in once. You build groups hundreds of times. What can I say? Yeah, maybe not. Depends how weird you are. So we have registries, and then we have co-managed. We'll talk about that as well. By the way, I'm not going to be speaking more about the Meister Eduperson piece, but going back to this touch point of supporting your researchers, if you don't do ORCID identifiers for your researchers, go off and do them. No cost. Your researchers can go off and get an ORCID identifier. The ORCID identifier is used to track scholarly outputs. And publishers tie these things together intensively. ORCID identifiers are used in vivo and other places where your scholarly outputs are kept. And it's again, it's a freebie, no cost. But
they're not allowing us to bulk load our users anymore.
Right.
Toads.
Yes. Well, in fact, the ORCID group has a couple of different foci, and not all of them are the right ones.
Yeah.
Including becoming an identity provider.
Yeah.
But we're working with the ORCID people on that. But again, all this means is that you now have an entry in your schema of Eduperson for your ORCID identifier. As Pat said, it's not going to be easy for you. It used to be you could go and buy ORCID identifiers for everybody on your campus, and you pay $15,000 or something like that. There was a fee. And just to show you the sharp business minds that librarians have, you could pay $15,000 and get it in bulk, or your researchers could go off and get it for free. It's not much of a business model, but in fact, ORCID is sustained by the publishers more than it is by the contributors.
And because they won't allow us to bulk upload, they're not even going to get to 15,000 anymore either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Okay. So it's okay, the publishers are really, they had deeper pockets than you did to begin with. I want to mention, let's see, so we're doing some federation stuff as well as in Release 1, but touching again on this point of researcher support. Let me just mention co-manage here. If you haven't looked at co-manage, do it. It's, again, free software. It leverages Grouper, it leverages SHIB. What it is identity management and applications for virtual organizations. And so basically take your sets of applications. Oh, I need a wiki, I need a list proc, I need a GitHub version for my community, I need a few other utilities, oh, I need some domain science tools as well. But I don't want to have to create accounts for new users in each one of those. And I don't want to have to remember by a yellow sticky to take the account away when that user is done with the collaboration. All of that stuff handles inside co-manage. I use co-manage every day to manage some collaborations that I'm a part of. I just add a user once, or take the user out, and everything else percolates. In fact, I never take users out. When I'm adding a user, I say, what's the trigger to change the user's status? And then I take the yellow sticky and I throw it away. Again, free software, it leverages what we call domesticated applications. An application is domesticated if it doesn't think it has to do its own authentication, and it doesn't have to do its own groups, and that's it. And taking those two functions out of applications suddenly makes every application essentially transparent. You're going to hit a bump or two along the way in terms of content moving back and forth, but in terms of the identity management and the life cycle for the users, all of that stuff goes away. It's being used now more and more by federal agencies to support their collaborations, and that's cool. Feedback, packaging. I don't think we want to. So the packaging goes. How many of you folks dabble in Docker? Dabble. Yeah. Use.
In what?
Docker. So it's managing your VMs in a bulk fashion. We wanted to go there. Grouper got there. Shib is still a challenge to get into a Dockerized container, but it's coming along, etc. Boy, we got into this. I put these up mostly just because they're interesting charts. Because you're somewhere in the spectrum of software adoption. What are your challenges in this space? And executive buy-in, readiness, local technical expertise. That's a real barrier. It's a barrier for a lot of the smaller institutions, et cetera. Here's how people wanted us to deliver the tier software. And you can see that some people want, they're going to roll up their sleeves. Some people will want a virtual appliance managed remotely. And I'll talk a little bit about how tier might manifest itself down the road. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to. So this is also interesting in terms of its readiness factors. The big dogs are probably ready to do this. There's a lot of schools that think, okay, in a year I got to get my identity management set up. And then there's a couple that are a large percentage that are multi-year out. And I'll talk about what that consequence for that is, packaging strategy. I want to take one observation from a mistake that I guess I helped foster, which is to use campus developers. Because campus developers tend to have day jobs that often say, oh God, you're not going to be working on that piece of software for the rest of the world. You're going to be fixing the problem that just happened in the last few hours. So what we are superb at as a community is creating problems. We have the best problem space in the world. And that has been the reason why the world has accepted our solutions, is because we are worst case engineering. If it can work in higher ed with its fractional environment, with its oddities, with its long trailing edge, it'll probably work in the rest of the world as well. And so the best example of that is multilateral federation. When federated identity first started around 2000, 2001, it was all, my company is going to outsource travel to that particular travel agency. But we don't want to create accounts over there, so let's create something. And then we're going to work with somebody else over here on acquisitions. But there was no idea that the world was going to interact multilaterally with each other. And now that has become the paradigm. It's the national paradigm. It's ubiquitous in the world. So again, that's a function of our problem space. So we have the best problem space in the world. And so we are going to continue to use the community to define the requirements. But on occasion, we're going to hire a company that does Docker, just to package all these things into docs or into bins so that we can handle that. And I think that's going to strengthen the environment and the release dates. It's a bit of professionalism, again, sweeping up after the years of ad hocness. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to grab. That's phase objectives, APIs. Okay, so I think we have integration with almost all of these things. I'm going to talk about the OpenID Connect in just a second, in case you have some mechanisms for that. ID match. I think we all have had this problem where somebody has shown up for the first time, except it's not the first time. They were in a high school program, or they were a contractor or something else, and they're already in the system, and now you put them in the system again, and my God, we want to merge the two, and you have to be really careful, because if you merge two really different people, untangling them is always hell. So that merge has got to be carefully managed, and that's what ID Match does in that space. And we will probably do that better than any commercial product, just because, again, we have worst case problems out there. You know, how many commercial products worry about, oh, we saw you in elementary school and we put you into the directory, and now, my God, there's somebody with the same birth date and the same birth location and the same name, but we're sure you're different. So data structures, tier, REST APIs, we're doing Skim and Swagger. God, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see any of this stuff. Lessons learned. We've learned lots of lessons. So here's what we're doing coming down the road. A lot of this now is going to be guidebooks and how do you begin to deploy this. Okay, so let me escape that and let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, so what does this mean to you folks? Well, it means sustainability for some important tools. So if you're using SHIB, you should have been anxious because it's funded on a borrowed nickel and a borrowed dime. It won't be going forward. Again, we're moving into more of a sustainability model, but I think this is and maintenance model, but the sustainability is important. In open source, open standards effort to address remaining gaps. So provisioning is something that just firmed up in the last few months as Skim 2 came along, and as Microsoft said they were going to do Skim, and Google said they were going to do Skim, so the big players are now doing that. So we'll be creating mechanisms for that. The registries, let me mention ID events. The identity community, the identity as they're called, is becoming aware of the fact that you folks link your accounts together, you know, so that if you have a problem with your Google account and you need to do a password reset, it will go to your Yahoo account, or, you know, those kinds of things. So the moment somebody acquires an account illicitly, they guess, well, you probably have the same login name on Yahoo, and they probably have the same login name on in Outlook, and we're going to probe all those spaces, and it works. Thank you very much for using the same password, or maybe they'll get the password reset. Nope, we'll go to one of those other accounts, and they'll grab it, etc. So there's a huge need to let the players in the identity space know that something bad has happened, and that's what ID events is all about. So ID events will be a mechanism. This is an IETF standard that's coming along, and it will be piggybacked for some other things. But the initial development was done by Google, but was and Oracle and a few other companies, and it's all around the fact that we tie our accounts together behind the scenes. But it's also going to be a tool for provisioning and some other things, because you create a mechanism and people will use it inappropriately.
SCIM is going to be an IETF standard?
Yes.
Statements?
No, SCIM is an IETF standard already. ID events will become a standard. There is a list out there. And it's going to be JOT tokens going around. So since I spoke JOT, let me mention about OpenID Connect, OIDC. We did SAML many years ago when we were told life was a web browser. Now it's also native clients. It's also these devices like phones. And you give a phone a SAML assertion and it gags. My God, angle brackets. Oh no, oh, this is way too long to pass in the little nifty ways that phone applications deal with each other. So a couple of years ago, the phone companies got together, and Google was big in this with Android, and developed an alternate form of federated identity called OpenID Connect. And it's good stuff. They learned from our lessons. They tackled a slightly different problem space. They didn't think multilateral. This is still, Google thought it was going to own the world. So how many IDPs are there out there? One, Google. Or maybe two. Well, Microsoft won't go under easily, but it will go under, etc. But OpenID Connect has a number of virtues, right? It does Java, has outputs. So the question begins, how can we begin to integrate this into the SAML landscape? And some of that work has already happened. So if you're running the newest version of SHIB, and you don't want to have the result of a shibboleth transaction be a SAML solution, you want it to be a Java token that can be consumed by a phone that's available today. So everything else looks like SHIB, but the output is a different kind of token, which is really handy. So if you're doing mobile applications, and who isn't doing applications for mobile, you probably want to issue a Java token versus a SAML. Interestingly, those dedicated clients on your phone are so bad at whatever they're trying to do that even the developers of OpenID Connect say, gee, for the login sequence, can we drive you over to your local web browser, your default web browser on your phone, because we understand those behaviors, and these clients suck because they're being written by 6-year-olds who, kind of stuff. That said, that's the first point of integration. And that's some code that got developed by Unicon under funding from University of Chicago. It's not part of the SHIB database, the SHIB packaging today. But it's a very easy add-on, and you can go play with it. The integration will only get more intense as we go forward with OpenID Connect. One of the things we want to have OpenID Connect learn from us is how to use our federated multilateral trust infrastructure. So when the client says, I need all these attributes, why should you believe that? Well, we have a trust infrastructure now that smells the armpits of applications and goes, this application does or doesn't need that kind of stuff. So that will be coming along. I'm probably running long, aren't I? Marla, when should the hook happen?
When should what?
The hook. When?
Well, officially you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Ten.
Ken?
I don't think Matt and I are going to take our full half hour.
Okay, I'll take that then. Is this an option to replace Oracle or Banner? I think so. There's a large number of schools that are chafing at Larry Ellison's latest price tag. So there's some very deep conversations going on about, is this stuff robust enough to run a large enterprise? And we're seeing schools like Duke say yes. So mind you, the process of getting out from under Oracle is almost as bad as being in Oracle. But once you're out, you're out. You don't pay for the yachts and the other things that Larry wants. And if you don't want to run any of this stuff, you can get it as a cloud service. It's not available today, but it's more than likely that TIER will be providing cloud services. But one of the other things that we're doing is helping other vendors get better at federation. And I want to point out Microsoft in particular and ADFS as it grows up. That ADFS can consume the in-common metadata in the world. Azure is learning how to consume the in-common metadata. Amazon is learning how to consume the in-common metadata. So when I was talking about that multilateral push in the world, they're beginning to understand that the future really is metadata driven, and they're learning how to take advantage of that. Okay, real quickly on in-common. Growth is steady. The next big step in growth is going to happen in a couple of months, and I'll describe that. The search service is still a winner. When Gail was talking about how we transformed the marketplace, this was a really important step. All-you-can-eat certificates was not part of the marketplace before that. That said, while everybody's going and getting SSL certs, not so many people are still doing personal certs because personal certs have lots of problems still with them. I committed to fixing all those problems. I seem to have not done that. So it goes. We're rebidding the cert service. They may even be cheaper coming forward. It's just really a transformed marketplace. Operations are being tended. Federation manager is being re-engineered. There are probably states and or communities that want to do local federations. I've seen this in a number of states where you've got, there's a bunch of technical schools or other kinds of things that we want to do together. We're going to give you federation management software that will do that. Sorry for the typo. Attribute release, that's going to segue into the last set of slides. It segues into what Gail was talking about helping researchers. The single quickest problem they have is not getting their attributes out to a relying party. CI logon, bless their hearts. This is the gateway to all of the TerraGrid kinds of big resources out there. CI logon, it transforms the SAML assertion into a PKI certificate. I'll mention two interesting things about it. First is that their business is changing. Very few applications today really want a PKI certificate. It remains hard. But they're suddenly dealing with lots of OpenID Connect applications, because setting up an OpenID application is cut and paste this in and set. So this is yet another indicator of the growing traction of OpenID Connect. The other thing they're doing is the wall of shame. So once a month, Jim Basney sends out 85 researchers from these schools are able to log on to CI logon and get to their important supercomputing resources. These 19 schools had problems. And he pushes that out in an email message, gently, getting a massive number of phone calls from those 19 schools the next day. So the wall of shame still has value in life, and guilt works, what can I say? EduGain. Okay, this is a thrill. International Interfederation. Why did we do this? Well, initially, back when we were doing PKI, the story for PKI was it's globally scalable. It was. It just wasn't locally deployed. Small oversight on the part of years of developers. So when we started Federation, the motto was it's locally deployable. Can we make it globally scalable? We hit that river now with EduGain and International Interfederation. 50 countries involved in this, 4,000 IDPs, thousands of relying parties, all goodness, except metadata subs. So loading the in-common metadata, now that it has EduGain in there, went from a 5 to 10 minute operation to 4 hours at some sites. 4 hours of not having the most current federated software. So this is driving the need for some enhancements. We are moving from Etsy hosts, and bless Byron and others who might remember Etsy hosts. You might think you still code in Etsy hosts, to DNS, dynamic query services. Another stress is
What did you mean by that? Spanish last names. Right. Mixed genres. You know, how do I take those 5 Spanish surnames and put them up as, you know, first name, last name, right? Affiliations. We have faculty, students, and staff. There is no word faculty in the UK. They only have staff and affiliations. When we pass them an assertion that says you're dealing with a faculty member, they go, what's that? So there's cultural gaps, etc. And then there's, if you don't know this acronym, you will shortly. It's the General Data Protection Regulation that came out of the EU. It covers privacy laws in the EU. It covers anybody who is serving an EU citizen. So if somewhere inside your campus you have an EU citizen in your directory, you are now covered by the General Data Protection Regulation, which assigns fines of up to 4% of your global revenue if you spill personal data.
But there's no international law that enforces that though, right?
So if you've been following recently, France and a few other countries are starting to say if you don't pay the fine, you don't operate in this country. It's very interesting to see how it happens. Ireland's going to turn out to be a pivot point for Google, I think it was, on all this stuff. But I think the EU is going to pull this off. And in which case, all of us are suddenly part of that tail being wagged by the EU dog. So that helps motivate. So just one last slide on this stuff. Baselines. In common used to be, hey, come on in. Still, come on in, but tell us a bit more about what you're doing. And in fact, your federated partners want to make sure that if there's some kind of event that happens, that you can turn off that account. Your federated partners might want to make sure that the values being stored for some of this stuff might be good. Your federated partners might be curious to know, did you patch Heartbleed? Your federated partners want to know more about your behavior. So we're starting to develop some baselines, and you can see some of that stuff about our software patches and key rollovers. I'll tell you the worst thing in the world is how we as a community manage the identifiers of our users. How many people reassign email accounts? Or email addresses? Oh, bless your hearts. Most of the world does. In fact, a large university just got in a president named Jones, and he's been logging on as a physicist named Jones for hundreds of years, and he wants Jones at harvard.edu. Oh, what do you mean it's taken away? I'm the president. Let's reassign that identifier. Of course, sir. The Steward program is going to be pretty important as well to bring in the next wave of participants. I told you that in Commons growth is kind of flattened because we got most of the initial targets. Now we want to be able to pull in K-12, local nonprofits, et cetera, as full-fledged members of InCommon. Semi-full-fledged. Scott will still be responsible for the elementary schools in Fort Collins that might want to join InCommon because they're not going to know how to sign these agreements. They're not going to know how to process account takeover stuff, et cetera. But we're going to carefully extend this permission to K-12s and locals through the Steward program. The biggest place that's doing this right now is North Carolina. Every K-12 school is joining InCommon behind Renzi. And their program. And then MFA, we're doing stuff. By the way, if you haven't seen, there's a lot of conversation going on about how MFA is being hacked. You would think, and it just affected Lori Cranner, who is the chief technologist for the FTC, and she's I know Lori, and it was basically someone went into an iPhone store and said, I want to buy some iPhones. Here's my number. Here's well, I don't have my photo ID, et cetera. And they took her number, at which point, since she was using the phone as the second factor,
Suddenly it was all out there. Our phone service stopped. Tricky stuff out there. Okay. So, last topic, real fast. We talked about attribute release being a problem. We talked about grouper being rampant. We talked about thousands of groups at Brown. Here's a really awkward situation. When we first started doing this stuff, we didn't think it was going to get off the ground. And so we made a packaging decision that we would stick all of your group memberships in one attribute called is member of. And people do that. So at Brown, I may have over 1,000 group memberships. So we just my consent to them. Today, Shibboleth, if a relying party says, I need group memberships, Shib goes, here they all are. Here's all 1,000 for chat. Well, that's a little awkward for the relying party, eating all that. It's a little awkward in what you've revealed. Weren't we supposed to be privacy preserving? Isn't it now known that Chad is a chess fetish person because he's part of the chess fetish club?
Fish.
Really? Okay. Oh, fish. Okay. There we go. So we need attribute release to be a little bit better, so we're not spilling the beans. So we need consent in there to do all that. And so we're starting our work to do that. I'm not going to go through any of the details of this.
You need to give consent to become a member of a group too, or is just the attribute release that you have to give consent to?
When you do group memberships, typically the way things work is people receive an invite. Okay. So if I'm using Grouper, Grouper sends out a click on this to join the group kind of thing. But we also have bulk loads so that the class lists, et cetera, can all go in there. I'll just mention that we talk all the time about federation as being an external activity. At Duke, there are Duke's internal federation is bigger than Uncommon. There's 2,000 student applications that interact with each other, many of which deal with buying basketball tickets, because that's important in Duke. But it's a student-run application dealing with another student-run application using OAuth. There isn't any SAML in here, except for the single log-on that you did at the Enterprise. That's all great, but frankly, if those two applications are going to talk to each other without intervention from the institution, we better have consent. So consent is coming up as a real driver for internal as well as external stuff. I just put this in so you can have it to the deck. There are some noble truths here. Kim Cameron from Microsoft years ago enunciated these. R.L. Bob had a major role in helping to shape all this stuff. User control and consent, minimum disclosure for constrained use, directed identity. We pioneered that as a community. In fact, this is in the slide deck because Bob Morgan, Kim Cameron, and I had wine at Kim's house in the early years, and Kim said, oh yeah, an identifier that is different for every different spot that you go so it isn't correlated. Good idea. I'll stick it into my deck. Kim had much more audience than the rest of us because he was the architect of Microsoft, etc. I won't go into all of that stuff, except that's what guides us. And so attribute release, I'll just show you the screen that was developed by Carnegie Mellon for a consent manager. Very clear about whether you're sending or not sending, the values being sent, tell me more buttons. This is so obnoxious, I never want to consent to this site again, I want you to remember this. So we're going to make consent a rigorous experience that you go through once per site, unless, you know, they change their privacy policy or something else like that. Notice that if an attribute is required, see that green one? There's no toggle. Application won't run if you don't pass in an identifier. So this distinction between required and optional attributes is a rethink that all of us need to do so that we can be privacy preserving. That is happening as we speak. We're building support for all of this stuff. And I'm going to stop right there. When will consent be available to you if you want to use it? Probably by the fall.
The software is being developed right now. The APIs are done. Will it be a good experience for the user? Absolutely not. Why? Well, because we don't have all those fields about what's required versus optional. What's the dialog box about why you need this? Where's the icon that says what line portal was I going to in the first place when I got back to this consent screen? So all of the informed content to drive informed consent is the last of the hurdles. You know, when I leave here, I'm going to actually go hiking. But after that, next week, I'm going to start working on this problem because it's really important. Questions? Pat?
Are enough institutions getting to income and silver fast enough? And
No,
having
it's toast.
So
Don't go there.
don't go to silver?
Don't go to silver, go to MFA.
Okay.
Because the identity vetting, well, first of all, the US government promised dazzling applications.
Yeah. Research.gov.
Yeah,
Gov, yeah.
they never showed. They never showed. And in the 8th year of a presidency, nothing happens, as we know. Supreme Court justices don't get approved. Certainly applications that use silver won't be out there. And in fact, it was the identity vetting that was very hard for institutions. And so MFA is really important.
Yeah.
So go there. So I didn't mention that we're doing a new profile for InCommon. It's just going to be MFA.
Yes. As hard as silver is to go to, MFA is going to be a lot harder for us.
Lots and lots of places are doing it.
Yeah.
I'm stunned.
I know.
What's going to be hard for you?
It's going to cost a lot of money.
Soft tokens.
Duo.
No, soft tokens.
Really? Okay.
Use the phones. They're really grand for that. Other kinds of soft tokens. SMS messages. By the way, there is a new 863. This is one of the ways in which we've been influential in the government. Not in getting them to do applications, but the government has redone 863, and they put up a draft of that on GitHub. Woo! U.S. government and GitHub? Yes. And so there were comments out there galore, including that SMS messages can be hacked, and so it's not the best way of doing certain things. But MFA is really tractable. We can let's talk at lunch or something, whether we can figure it out.
Right. One more.
Yeah, Scott.
Yesterday, Kelly provided a nice reflection of Westnet, an analysis of Westnet as an architecture, and pulled out some pieces from presentations past that could be used as guiding principles for Westnet. In the years that you've been providing these kinds of updates, are there some guiding principles that you think we should keep in mind with respect to identity management and these kinds of topics?
Well, we'll gum some of those this afternoon, I think. But certainly single sign-on has been very useful. Federation clearly has good traction, multilateral federation. We mentioned that if you give users group tools, they'll run amok. That's really useful. Provisioning never happened quite the way we wanted to, but it's starting to do that. And then maybe this conversation Pat and I just had about, you know, we had silver in our hearts, and it turns out it didn't really fit us well. MFA will be better on that. And then I think the other thing is federation is good stuff, but then when you're all linked together with one account mechanism, you better make sure it's protected by MFA. You better make sure you have some kind of mechanism to alert others if that account is compromised.
Any questions for Ken? Thanks, Ken. All right, this is our annual discussion about should we have another Westnet? So 30th anniversary, maybe we should just stop.
Okay.
So be it. You guys can go your merry way, or we can keep having meetings. So,
I move we have another Westnet.
which would assume we're a formal organization that can move and second anything, but which is the next topic. Does anyone not want to have another Westnet in January? Right? So in anticipation of that, I've talked to Arizona State, and Gordon looked a bit stunned at the Internet 2 meeting when I suggested that he host, and he said, "Didn't I just host?" And I said, "No, University of Arizona just hosted, it's your turn." And so he agreed, and his staff is very supportive and helpful, and they've already reserved a room. So the next question is, do we want to have a CIO meeting on the Monday? We can do Monday CIO, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as Westnet. And I bring this up because Pat claimed I came up with this idea to do CIO meetings. And he is wrong. I did not come up with this idea. I am not a CIO. There is no way that I would suggest it. Steve and Steve has suggested this. So now Steve's back, and do you want to keep having a CIO meeting? This came up in the context where I said they had to put the agenda together because I don't really know what CIOs talk about.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to coordinate it, but it really does take the CIOs to be.
No, we're not having the RFC MOA meeting, so the two meetings.
RMC MOA ends in August. And so that will be the last workshop on CMOA. Now, we have submitted an RM risk proposal, which would involve security workshops, but that hasn't been funded yet, so I can't really plan on that. So, you're laughing, Dave. Yes.
No, I was not taking a picture.
It could be a really big picture.
I like having CIO meetings because, I say this delicately, when CIOs all get in the room and they talk, they come up with great grand ideas. But then when the Westnet community of us get together and says, hey, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're feeling, this is what we're seeing, they come back from those meetings and say, hey, I see those challenges for you. So I think it's good to tie the C level in with the nerd level.
You're assuming that they stay.
True.
Right.
True, but then, you have people like Pat and Kelly and several other that do say and bring that information into the CIO. So
I agree with you. When they do stay, it's great.
yeah.
I cannot control that.
Put the CIO
Control
meeting-
a lot of things. I
Put the
think,
CIO meeting at the end. Or right in the middle.
but-
Yeah. in the
Pat's,
end, and then
Pat's
they can
looking very
provide the
disturbed.
Yeah, I want to echo the idea of mixing the CIOs with people they report to. When we were starting to define tier, we had a CIO meeting, we had an architects meeting. Then we had one with the CIOs and the architects from their campuses together. And almost all the conversation was between the CIO and the architect going, did you hear what they just said about how they did things? Can't we do that here? No, we can't, because years ago you agreed that the alumni wasn't going to be part of the identity management system or whatever. So the illumination between the CIO and the architects on an individual campus, because of what was being done on other campuses, turns out to be really valuable. We're not having requests for ID architects meeting by themselves anymore, or CIOs meeting by themselves, but bring the tribes on the campus together in a facilitated fashion.
But we have not been successful in keeping the groups together. So it still ends up, we have a dichotomy. The CIOs come from Monday, it's great. Last time we attempted to have a dinner Monday night in order to hope they spent the night and came the next day. We maybe got a couple more CIOs,
2 or 3 this
but we did not get the whole set.
Right.
Because CIOs are busy and they come in, they do their one day and they.
So when you had that software-defined networking the second day, they didn't stay for that?
When Gil had that meeting, we may have gotten a few more. I think we may have gotten that because we had another meeting. I can't remember how that was laid out. It may have been the CIO meeting was after that. I can't quite remember. If we, had a workshop that people were interested in.
I don't think more than 4 or 5 this day.
Yeah.
I'll see how many each of them. Every call I use it does.
So it really, in some ways, comes down to, is it valuable for the Westnet CIOs to get together once a year and talk to each other, which I don't know how much you guys talk to each other otherwise. I mean,
In Colorado.
Colorado talks through the
Yeah.
Chico the Chico group pretty regularly, but you don't necessarily talk to the Utah and the.
No, I think it's real valuable. The CIO group gets together.
But I bring this up because it will take a commitment from some CIOs to put the agenda together. So I will work with you, but I need.
So I've heard really great comments about the last CIO Westnet meeting.
Yeah, I think
I heard from a lot of people that was the best one ever, so I think we should try it again.
I think the dinner had something to do with that and the speakers. And,
Yeah.
right. And a lot of effort went into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just going to comment that within senior community, the CIOs and DCRs within this UC and greater RMU community do meet at least on an annual basis. And I think that has been very important.
Did they do just a separate like CIO focused meeting?
Correct. So,
because you guys have the scenic meeting with obviously some CIOs were there. Right. But then you do a separate CIO.
Right. This is, I think it's more organized around UC as product forums. This CIOs that participate, but then they invite either lead researchers from various institutions to present at that meeting, and also president, vice chancellors of research. So this is in part, I think, to try to address how do we, from the CIO, how do they engage the researchers? So try to pull in, that's part of the outcomes.
Do you know who coordinates it? I mean, is it? Yeah, because maybe we should look at one of their agendas and sort of.
So Larry Smart, who is ending tomorrow, participates on this.
Right. Yeah.
And then I believe Lewis is our senior vice president.
Yeah. So we should look at how you guys do that. Yeah, Mike.
I would also suggest that you consider for the CIO meeting expanding it to include those organizations that have CTOs as well and have it, because I know that some of us have CTOs as well, and having a kind of a C-level meeting would also help the attendance.
And I'm happy to do that. You know, it's not certainly restricted to CIOs. I can certainly send the list out of who's on the CIO mailing list. It's kind of like, I think I just got an email from Northern Arizona. They've just hired a new CIO. And so it must have been their acting was on our list and said, can you add so?
Yeah.
I'm not up on all of that, so we probably should review that list on some sort of regular
If
basis.
the CIO meeting's expanded to the CTO, what do you think about expanding it to the TIZO as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a C-line.
Those three is what I would think.
I think we have actually come.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would agree.
I have to admit, I kind of lump you all together. So,
Yeah. Let's call it the CXO meeting.
And for what it's worth, I did talk to Steve Hess yesterday, or not yesterday, before yesterday, before I came here, and he's still under the impression there's one CIO meeting every year, and I think it's still on his radar to try and make it. So.
it is, and actually Steve's emailed me back. I did send out the dates. I got actually a fair number of responses. I got one that it wasn't good. Brian, was that you? That said those dates weren't good for you, but I think everybody else said the dates worked for them. Of the people I've heard, not everybody responded. But what were the dates? So, all right, on the agreement that we're going to have a CIAC something meeting, whatever we're calling it, the Big C meeting, and we're going to have a Westnet meeting. The dates proposed at Arizona State and Tempe would be January 9th, Monday, would be the CIO meeting, and January 10th, 11th, 12th would be the Westnet meeting. Those dates are chosen for a couple of reasons. Last year, I enthusiastically put the meeting right after New Year's, and that was really not a good idea. So for me, it was not great because I was traveling right after New Year's, and the university had just come back, and they were not ready to go. So we agreed not to do it the first week of January, and then we get into Martin Luther King weekend, so that's a short week, and then most of the universities are back in session, and so there's not a perfect week. That's kind of in the middle. So hopefully that works for everybody. Anybody violently opposed to that or want to find a different week? I know for many people that semester is starting. Brian, that's his first week of school. So that's the proposal. Any objections to that combination? All right. We'll put, we take care of putting the recurring agenda items on the lightning talk, so what are you doing about? The two I have noted are lecture capture. Mike's already contacted his person and he's agreed to present once we give him details. And Ryan, you said you'd be the contact for you guys. So that's on there. Do you think an hour is going to be enough for both topic? I mean, both of your people to present on that topic?
What is everyone thinking? Is that an hour's enough for that topic, or you all want?
So it'd be like 30 minutes for you, 30 minutes for.
I guess so. And this is a lecture capture?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark could take 45 minutes by himself with all the stuff he's doing.
So do we want to do 1.5 hours? All right. And then ASU, I talked to them about doing this Fortinet presentation. They're using a tool for data protection. Is that something that's interesting to people? I saw this was at I2. They did I think it's been a partnership between I2 and Fortinet and Arizona State. So, or is that not something people want to hear about? I mean, people are talking about data integrity. This is really their research data, how they're trying to make sure it's protected. Okay, so other topics.
Yeah, it's just more, especially for the CIO activity. If you want to create a small planning team, some of us control for CIOs from relevant institutions not part of Westnet that might come in, and you could actually have vigorous panels and things like that. So maybe getting some outside folks to come in, because Arizona State will pull people, well, Phoenix will pull people in January, so we can go northeast and find some snow-covered CIO and dust her off and bring her in.
And I encourage you to look for something like on Tuesday that would be like what Gil did, if there's another topic like that.
I know you liked what Gil did. I did not hear actually a great response from the technical people about what Gil did. So you get this mix, I think you probably all don't even remember. It was an SDN presentation from a number of different vendors. I think there was a lot of vendorism, and it was felt it wasn't highly touchable and tangible.
I don't think it bridged that well to the Westnet meeting. I don't think if the CIO stayed at Tuesday, I don't think there's just a few. There's only like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's kind of made a practice of staying.
And if you guys
Better
can,
than none, though, right?
Sure, absolutely.
if you guys can come up with a topic for Tuesday morning that is appealing to both the technical side and the CIO side, I'm happy to do that. I as I said, I'm a little.
Okay, we'll think on it.
I'll tell you my incredible weakness is I do networking, and that's all I do. So the broader stuff that CIOs are having to deal with is I'm just weak on that, and so I'm glad every day I don't have to think about it. As Fabian knows, we keep getting pressure on the security side, and I keep going, that security stuff is really being handled quite well by other people. So
we had 2 topics we didn't put on the agenda for this meeting that we can show, right?
Oh yeah, Pat.
Right for the CIO meeting as well, I think.
Yeah, we had a Susan
Great chat.
from Edgecause and maybe a Wichita.
Yeah.
But those are more CIO, right?
They're CIO.
Other topics for the main, I'm going to propose, let's talk about Westnet. You and I, maybe the CIO committee can talk about it.
Architecture discussion. Architecture.
Okay. Other topics that have been brought up. DAS seems to be an ongoing discussion. We probably need to give Michelle more time because that topic went long. So
I think it would be good as maybe a collaborative discussion.
like a panel. Are you willing to lead a panel?
Yeah.
Are other people particularly moving on DAS that want to work with Michelle?
We can work with her.
I was going to ask how folks wanted to bring in the small
Microcells?
microcell
Yeah.
into that discussion. I know we didn't talk about
5G and microcells.
We're doing 20 microcells on our campus this summer, right? We're back on this.
And we're doing the same thing. Oh, we're not.
I mean, Michelle, are you willing to do DAS and microcells in one panel and maybe have an hour for that, you think? So I've got UU and U of A. Anybody else particularly want to be on a DAS panel? DAS or microcell?
So Reynolds still going to talk as long as you want about that as well.
Okay.
So it's Reynolds.
Oh, yeah. Mark and I have a regular exchange about him not coming.
CSU is a maybe.
And then I say, you want me to talk to Gil so you can come. It's an annual, every 6 months we have that exchange.
Okay. I was gonna change topics.
Sure.
Okay. So ClearPath is something we're currently installing, just in the very first stages. I know that there's others that have ClearPath, so I would be interested in hearing something that, as far as the lessons learned that you've seen, as you've kind of gone through that process.
Yeah,
sounds like a panel to me.
Well, we can see where we are in 6 months. We are supposed to be deploying ClearPath. We have not, so maybe Scott will be.
I can commit to a panel or leading a
So
panel.
I've got Chad,
Like
Michelle.
some other volunteers, please.
Okay. I'll share what we are going.
We'll put UCAR on there tentatively. In theory, we'll have done something by then.
Might write that one down.
Okay, Alex, are you the right person or would somebody else?
Probably Matt's now.
Okay. Yeah, you should bring Matt. I forgot how entertaining Matt is. Other topics?
So I wouldn't mind hearing a security incidents, like recent security incidents. We could share ones that are shareable.
Oh, you know, one of the other topics.
Yeah.
You willing to leave that?
Oh, sure. I spoke up.
Well, the other thing is, Pat organized, a number of you were there, the FBI to come in and talk. I too also had the FBI come in and talk. They had offered to come in and talk to Westnet, either about that topic or just some general.
But that wasn't very good though, was it?
Well, I just found the
I
whole.
think we've got more interesting things to talk about than the Russians,
Yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah.
Oh, please, we were under disclosure. I just found the whole experience entertaining because, you know, those guys were, it was just like you'd think the FBI agents would be. And Laz
has to wear a suit and glasses.
And Laz was one of the agents at the IT meeting, so I went up.
to talk about some of the other stuff. That would be more interesting. I agree.
Okay, we won't invite the
But,
we won't
you
invite
know,
the
they've
FBI.
actually been approaching boards and wanting to brief our boards. And we've seen that on the CIO listserv in the past few days of the RUC, of the RUC, the R1 CIO.
Well, somehow by going to that event, I'm now on some list where I'm getting Amber alerts. I'm like, well, no, I didn't want to actually get any warnings about what was going on.
Yeah, but you know, the CIOs would like to talk about how not to have them approach our boards.
Oh, yeah. We can put that on the CIO list.
Yes.
Anybody using Zerbium? Okay. We can talk about that on the next one. We all look at that all-in-one monitoring tool. We're extremely happy with that 150 euro product.
All right, 30 minutes, good for that? Do you want a panel or are you just going to talk about it?
What's that?
You want a panel or are you just going to talk about it?
What about, hey Matt, what about a panel that compared a few different tools?
We could add that in there, so I mean, we can go to the handful of stuff we're using and still continue to use up until we got Zerbium and then solved all of our baseline historical issues.
So
it seems to work. Yeah.
No, but what you use it for, how you use it, why you're using it.
If there's a panel, yeah, it's probably time to talk about what we're using for tools.
All right, you're in charge of the panel. I've put Observian and other tools. Any other topics? leap to mind, it is always a much easier operation to get these topics in advance than to get them after the fact. Dave?
So in light of the women doing it, I'd like to hear what people are going back and coming and thinking about integrating security, the DevSecOps thoughts, how they're bringing security closer into the operations to start getting to the unpredictable.
Do you want to do that as a panel that, or an open discussion, or?
Yeah, but I'd like some.
I'd like to be on that.
Okay.
Because it would be a interesting question.
Others want to be on that panel?
We do it because we don't have full-time security people.
You know, if that works, awesome.
So we're not doing that now, but I think it's a great idea, and we could try to coerce our security lead to come down.
So CSU somebody?
Lobos.
Pardon me?
Steve Lobos.
Oh, Steve. Oh, yeah, Mr. Scotch. He can come if he brings scotch. We had quite an interesting exchange about that too. In fact, I still have his favorite scotch that I was very disappointed. I was going to taste it. My brother didn't have it. All right, other topics?
I'm not volunteering.
You always say that. You always say that, Chad.
We've been looking at Cisco ACI real briefly. We've been looking at VMware's NSX. I'd be interested in hearing from anyone who's made the ACI decision. I know CU Springs just went all in on it. I've heard a few others in the room might have, I don't know.
So if I could get our chief architect to make time to come next in January, I would commit to take ownership of that. If he can't, well.
So you purchased, you're going forward, you're doing.
He's architecting our ACI, and we are all in the ACI.
That's very of interest to me.
All right, Mike, I'll put your name down and see if you, and the good news or the bad news, and I'll have to negotiate with Matt now that he's seen this great skill set with video. But now we're doing video. It does take some of the pressure off if people can present remotely. They don't have to come to the whole meeting. It's nice if they can come to the whole meeting, but Chico's going back and forth about using Zoom in general. I'm not sure what ASU has, but anyways, we'll either do Zoom or we'll do Google or something. So, all right, other topics.
So Greg Williams from CU Springs, they just went all in on it. And I'm trying to tap them for a Chico talk. And CU Springs doesn't usually come to Westnet, but we could ask.
So Chad, also, our ACI, our architect is driving ACI as part of a broader data center automation initiative, which is basically how our data center can become a more holistic, real-time provisioning, service providing environment.
With security in mind, don't forget.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I mean, that's kind of why it's being completely driven out of the architecture office. I'm sure people will find it interesting if I can get it here.
Okay.
Has anyone got an NSX story, the VMware NSX?
I'm interested in that too.
We all are, yeah. They're competing architectures that
I'll put that on there with I'm gonna put your name next to it because you suggested it. I'll just say Chad suggested. You don't have to talk about it, but you're gonna have to find somebody to talk about it. Yeah, Dave.
How about like Azure Active Directory? Is anyone using that for single sign-on?
Which? Who? Huh?
Azure.
Oh, Azure. Oh, the dreaded Azure.
Azure AD specifically.
versus DirSync.
Yeah, versus, well, yeah, so you got the DirSync and everything with it, it's an overarching product for Azure. Box, other vendors, instead of using Shiplet on campus.
I see.
They'll do all the options and then single sign-on.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Are you looking at that?
Our architect is hot on that.
Aren't you Microsoft? You aren't looking at it?
No, we're not doing
Maybe you're
Actually, UNC
run shit.
UNC? Like our UNC?
Yeah. Tap breath there.
Are you guys using it at Arizona? The Azure active director?
No.
All right. I'll pencil it in, and Matt said maybe UNC's doing it. So, any other topics we need to?
I don't know if this may be better for what are you doing about, but just sort of the privacy conversation, we continue to see the proliferation of, the utilization of free services. So, Eventbrite, MailChimp, on it goes, and things where we have, faculty or others sending out lots of student contact information. Portfolio is another one. There's these services out there where people believe they're using this great free service for sharing information.
Well, and that may roll into, because PII was mentioned here, and how you educate your staff. Maybe it's more of a one, how much is being used, but two, how do you make sure your staff understand?
Yeah, I think that's the question.
Right. Yeah, we just had a briefing, that our people did. So I'm not suggesting we're not you don't want to pattern stuff off of us, but
I think James would be great to lead that.
well, and I think that's more a discussion. So you could just lead an open discussion.
Following the NSX route, is anybody looking to pursue the hyperconvergence?
As far as hyperconverged infrastructure across the board, that's all part of that broader NCI integrated automation data center plan. So,
So does that fit into your ACI?
Chad, what do you think?
Well, he and I, we've been talking about this a lot, it's a hyper-converged CPU with disk. Is that where we're headed back to?
We had a lot of discussions with for our VDI infrastructure, and of course the vSAN was very aligned for it. So once you throw that in, it's too expensive, but it's something we may look at for.
So I think there are two discussions here. I think we have kind of a ACI conversation, and then maybe just have a synergy of a follow-on hyper-converged, almost like a what are you doing about panel kind of a conversation around hyper-converged. Those that are doing it or headed that way, come prepared to discuss it. What do you think? Is that reasonable?
Matt, are you willing to do the panel? Well, maybe you're just leading the discussion, or you can assign the panel to someone else. You can delegate, I just need somebody to delegate. You can bring Brian back in. He did apologize for not telling me he was retiring, so, and he did apologize for not showing up, but some other meeting took precedent, so. All right, if you come up with other topics, we may come up with some others in the various 5-minute madness and other things that are going on. So I will send those dates out. Make sure you mark your calendar, and we'll get logistics. The good news about Arizona State is we've been there many times before. Is everybody okay with the room we normally meet in? They have suggested other rooms. I too actually had a meeting in the room that Gordon suggested last time, and I really didn't like the room, and their catering is really expensive. So if we're okay with the room, this is a big group, and I'm a little worried that this is the biggest Westnet we've ever had. We were talking about this last night. We have about 45 people here. Usually we have 30 to 35. So we fit in there when we have 30 to 35. If we have 40 to 45,
You'll still fit in there.
be a little cooler.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Have
heard
to
it
sit
here.
next to each other.
I take 2 seats.
I'm volunteering to do a panel or help a conversation around Office 365 and what they're doing.
Office 365 and what?
We just had maybe facilitate a panel around Office 365.
All right. You sound so enthusiastic, Mike.
Well, those that don't know, I recently inherited all of enterprise communications into my portfolio of things to worry about. And Office 365 was one of those strategic projects from our CIO. And the CIO thinks there's great savings coming from that way. So far, I haven't pulled it. Been able to get any data that suggests there's really any savings yet. So I'm just,
All right, you're volunteer.
I'd be curious about that as well. I mean, what we're finding, the challenge with our Office 365 is the constant incremental, additional products that are out there and cost getting.
And you mean like in subordinates?
Yes, every,
Provide docs and
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
Well, something else has appeared, what do I do with this?
So Mike, I think you have a volunteer for your panel.
yep, I think we got something to talk about.
All right, you're always welcome to email me. There is a steering committee for the CIO meeting, and there's a steering committee for this meeting. I wouldn't say it's the most responsive set of people. They're lovely people, but sometimes those emails just go out and there's just sort of black hole. And so yeah, I'm happy to support this, but I do need help. So if you can respond, it would be really helpful.
I volunteered to be on the CIO committee to try to pull in someone from the Northeast who doesn't want to share.
Maybe it's that the emails come from me. Maybe if somebody else sent them. If Ken sent the message, you'd actually respond.
No.
Not that I can see. It's impacting my whole persona that people don't respond. As my staff know, I complain because I send emails out and it's just an ether, So, all right, that's it for that. So Matt and I, in the midst of getting alcohol for the party tonight, the question came up about who should pay, and that brought up this question of the fact that Westnet's not a legal organization, and so Kelly pays for things, but he's paying it through his LLC, which has some restrictions, and the university didn't feel they should pay for things because it wasn't really for the university, it was for Westnet, which brought up the question of whether we should consider Westnet becoming a standalone, not-for-profit. So that's what Matt is going to talk about. We will let you have a break, really.
Marla?
Yes.
Marla, I just, Trevor's gonna take the ACI thing and get Ken here and work through the presentations of Trevor's.
So I got 5 minutes? So 5 minutes before break maybe, and we're gonna talk legal stuff? Great. So I'm not a lawyer. I read contracts, but I'm not a lawyer. So yeah, so this kind of came up of should Westnet be a nonprofit? And so the question is, does anybody know what type of entity Westnet is?
It's an unaffiliated association.
It's an unaffiliated, unincorporated nonprofit association. So because this is legal, there's lots of verbiage in here. I didn't make bullets. So legally speaking, when a group of people get together and decide to perform some task without filing any legal paperwork or establishing any form of legal structure, whether they know it or not, they have formed an unincorporated association. So I'd contend that's what Westnet is. An unincorporated association means an unincorporated group of 2 or more persons joined by mutual consent for a common lawful purpose, whether organized for profit or not. So I think that's what we are. So there's a disadvantage to that, is that we have no separate legal existence apart from just us. And what that really means is its members generally can be personally liable for its debts and liabilities. So this is amazing. Westnet's run for 30 years in this mode without a single problem, right? So really the question is, do we keep doing that or do we form a 501c3? So a nonprofit organization, I've been in a few of them, Chico's one that a lot of us are members of, right? So it gives you that protection from personal liability, gives you tax exemption, so that would have been helpful. It would have saved Westnet a little bit of money.
You know what the flow is?
It's 501c3.
Is it a 501c?
It is.
Yeah.
And almost all of the regional scenic is a 501c3. UCAR is a 501c3. I2 is a 501c3. So it's a pretty common.
So that,
Tax is an issue, quite frankly. My accountant is a little concerned about how we collect the money, and
because we are nothing, right? We're just individuals.
so we're working it out that it's not clear, quite frankly.
Yep. So the two other things, add more work, but you can apply for grants if you're a 501c3, and you can solicit contributions. People can take
Which we have had, right?
a tax, right, which we kind of just had.
First time.
So they could have taken
Got it yet.
yeah, they would have had a tax break by donating to a nonprofit.
In the mail, but it hasn't showed up yet.
So it's really not hard to form a 501c3. You got to get a business name. You got to choose a state. So you're incorporated under a state.
Delaware.
So you have to get a business name. So we'd have to find a state that doesn't have Westnet in it. Westnet's actually a pretty popular name. You got to file your paperwork. You file for tax exemptions. You got to create some bylaws. So there's lots of templates to do that. And you have to have a board of directors and hold a meeting. So it's not too onerous, but it takes.
So we think we
people
can do
and
that
time.
without hiring an attorney?
Yeah, we just did for the LTPT in Southwest Colorado.
Quite frankly, we have a little bit of money. We could do it. We could get a little bit of legal advice.
I mean, an attorney could probably do it for
Yeah.
$300 or $400. Yeah,
Okay.
on that.
I thought that the protection that the organization gets is through insurance, the board of directors insurance. So I don't know if you need that, and if it's expensive or not. It should be commensurate with the risks we present, which are minimal.
It's 30 years of.
All those paper, that's sort of paper that we're obligated.
It might be, but separate from the incorporation fee, for the 501c. Like there may be some other expenses.
Right now would be a good time to do this.
Yeah.
Financially.
I can just say a few things about that because, like, the board of directors, local nonprofits in Durango, they're established, but then we discovered accidentally, oh my gosh, we need insurance for the board of directors because there's a liability that gets assigned because you have the bylaws and then you have a board, and if somebody trips, so happy lawyers happy to see you. It's critical to have insurance for the BOD.
Does Chico have,
I think that's news to us, right? Chico?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't.
That's why it'd be good to have an attorney.
well, and the question is always, do we have to hire an attorney or, obviously UCAR has a few attorneys walking around, all of our universities do, could we ask them advice without having to?
Dave's stretching in the back.
Is there a question we're trying to answer with this?
Well,
Oh,
it
here.
came up in this context. It has come up about, we don't really, like, Kelly is taking these registration fees in. Kelly, we haven't had a discussion about how long he's willing to do this. You know what, we've kind of gone through CSU had the money, and then somehow, nobody remembers how, Utah took over the finances, ran it for many years very well with no overhead. Then they realized they were running something with no overhead, and why were they doing this? And so UCAR has a very low UCAR overhead, very high NCAR overhead. I would take it over, except they won't let us run this through UCAR. We have to NCAR, you don't want to pay 68% overhead on a $150 fee. So, and no other university at the time we last spoke about this wanted to take this over. So we're in a bit of a kind of odd, fortunately Kelly stepped forward and has done a great job, but you know, we've got this kind of third party organization that's not maybe completely happy with the risk.
Tax wise is the issue right now.
I mean,
It's the tax issue right now.
And so one of the things that came up was, actually I asked Kelly if he'd do the registration for Farnet's having their 30th anniversary or something. And, he said that his tax guy's already a little worried that he's doing unrelated business for his LLC. Westnet's, because Kelly attends, is okay, but, as he gets outside of that, it gets a little shakier and shakier as to what he's working on. So I think in the long term, the question is, more of a financial, who's going to manage the finances? So presumably if there was a not-for-profit that had a bank account, Chico, I assume the money from Chico goes into a Chico bank account, right? And we have a Westnet bank account, so in some ways it's accounting and finances. And the tax exempt status then allows us to buy things from campuses, catering and that kind of stuff without, paying taxes on it.
And income tax on it on the registration fee.
Yeah,
That's the big issue.
that's another, since we are unincorporated. Yeah.
That
So-
sounds like a good idea. How about we spin up a little subcommittee to take a look at this and come up with a formal proposal at the January meeting?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. This could easily roll over to the next meeting and.
Now, I suggested we just roll this under Chico, because there's already a not-for-profit and.
Well, that is an option,
There's a
but to
huge
find
overlap.
another.
We could look at that as a.
That was not met,
But-
enthusiasm when I last brought it up, but.
Well, there's more than Colorado people in this room.
Yeah.
Why Chico? There's a Utah organization that can do this, or a Arizona or New
You
Mexico.
can, they could do it.
Which state is the trademark available in, or the name available in?
Where's Jim when we need?
Right.
You're not paying attention.
Sorry.
Okay, who wants to be on the committee? Scott? Matt?
I will, yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah,
Okay,
Kelly.
we
would
got
be
Scott,
good.
Matt, Kelly, and Chad.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll set up a Google group called.
Me too, I've been in several LLCs in soccer world.
Who's leading this group?
Not me.
Matt? Scott?
Sure, I started it. I
All
can
right.
keep
Yes,
the
you're.
conversation going.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay. All right, so we're behind schedule, as you are all aware. So our next topic is 5-minute madness. So presumably, we can compress a bit. Maybe just give people 3 minutes. So let's take a 10-minute break. Too short.
Somebody's going for breaks, yeah.
Just mandate that, huh?
We're just doing what?
Make it so.
Stop on 50 minutes. 50 minutes. Back at 10 till 11.